Welcome back to the Robbins Business Show. Glad to have you back. We've got a terrific guest tonight for you, and Mr. Peter Karlson. We'll talk more about that in a few minutes. This show, the Robbins Show, is all about developing your business. And I am the host of the show, Bill Fox, and the co-host is none other than the inimitable Cliff Robbins.
Bill, how are you?
Cliff, you're looking great tonight. You're looking very trim.
Thank you very much. My wife's had me on a diet, and for the most part, I haven't cheated all that much.
Well, I want to find out what you do when you're out of sight.
So does she.
So does she. Anyway, Cliff says that he is just inundated these days. He is a senior advisor for the Massachusetts Small Business Development Centers Network. And he said that in today's economic climate, which is a polite way of putting things, Cliff,
Is that what they call it still?
Climate,
yeah, climate, yeah.
That Cliff is actually, busier than ever than what you might call more normal times.
Right.
And anyway, we're going to do the regular segment of the Robbins Business Show, which is called Cliff's Notes, because Cliff gets all around New England and meets many people, advises many people, and he knows what's going on with the business scene. And he comes on the show and does Cliff's Notes for us every single time. And Cliff, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Bill, thank you very much. Tonight, I'd like to comment on some of the things that are happening in the economy just quickly. It's not good, it's not pretty, and a lot of people are asking me, what should I do? Well, you've got to maintain sales, if not increase them. And that marketing plan that I preach about all the time is absolutely the thing you have to work on. And one of the things that I'm talking to people about is to pay attention to the new rules of marketing and understanding, according to Robbins' rule number 3, the use of technology in working your marketing plan and working these new things into your marketing plan. Tonight, I just want to mention to you this book that I've been recommending for probably about a year. It's called The New Rules of Marketing and PR. And again, we don't sell books on this show. We don't have any ties to authors or publishers or anything else. It's just that I read these books. It's a hobby. I've read about 1,000 books on the subject of marketing because it's been a hobby of mine for about 30 years. And this particular one came out about a year ago, and it really is an eye-opening book. It's basically about how to use news releases, blogs, podcasting, and utilize viral marketing and online media to reach your buyers directly. It talks in the book about the way the world has changed, and the world has changed profoundly. And again, as I've mentioned so many times, technology is what's changed the world of marketing. And if you get this book and you read this thing, you're going to learn all about things like blogging, and you're going to learn about RSS feeds. And you probably don't know what I'm talking about, but you really should. You're going to learn about e-newsletters and the power of spreading the virus of your business and creating a brand identity for your company. The new way, it doesn't take a lot of money. It just takes some time, some knowledge, and some effort. And utilizing your website to market directly to your audience is a way to create a brand identity for you and actually increase your sales, even though things are a little difficult out there in the market, because your competitors probably aren't using these things to reach the target audience that you're both after. So you use these rules, read the book, get out there, and you can still do quite well in this economy. As I said last week, a rising tide floats all boats. The tide's out, the rocks are showing, the winds are blowing. That doesn't mean you can't sail. You can sail. If you know how to sail your boat, you'll do just fine, and you'll position beautifully for when this thing turns around, because this too shall pass, and your business will be positioned for tremendous success later on. So get a hold of this book, read it, and understand how to market your company the new way.
Well, and everything that you're saying, Cliff, is so crucial today. Learning the new marketing techniques, learning how new technology bears on developing business. It's just absolutely critical. We got to keep talking about this.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, tonight we have someone who is a champion in the world of technology, and His name is Peter Karlson, and we're lucky to have him on the show. He's becoming, something of an icon on the Cape. He's doing fantastic things by sharing his time with developing new businesses and developing ideas and so forth. Peter is founder and president of his own company called New Eon, and he's going to speak to Cliff and me tonight about that. He is also the president of the Cape Cod Technology Council, which pushes the idea of best use of technology. And he is also, get this, he is founder and president of a new operation called New Office, and where he is helping entrepreneurship on the Cape, foster it and develop it and so forth. It's great. He's got a lot to talk about tonight. I think we're going to talk about the founding of his own company, and we'll have him back on subsequent shows. So let's, with that, Cliff, let's get on and talk to Peter.
Peter?
Cliff, good to see you.
Welcome to the show. Good to have you on.
Thanks.
This is Peter Karlson of New Eon, and Peter, tell the audience a little bit about the trials and tribulations of starting a business and how you overcame it all.
Yeah, I don't know if you're never out of the woods. That's when you don't do well. Let's see. I started really in 2003, sort of transitioning into 2004. I was leaving another company, and I had the opportunity to start this company where my grand plan when I first started was, well, I can take all these great sort of big company lessons that I had of consulting services, software development, all these great things, and tailor it to a small business market. While that was somewhat successful, I think the services that I really had the most traction in the marketplace was a service I started with a partner company, Secure Networks, was around the managed IT, which is really IT outsourcing for small business. Mm-hmm. And that's really, we spent 3-4 years really building up that business, while at the same time, splitting my time between true technology company consulting.
Right.
So, those two things going hand in hand, I think, made a nice complementary business to each other. Mm-hmm. So, that's mostly what I was doing during
Excellent.
that time period.
And where do you stand now? I mean, your business has evolved.
It has, absolutely, right.
As all businesses do.
That's right.
We talked a few shows ago about how businesses evolve over time, and it's evolve or die.
Right.
I believe Mr. Bill here put it as one of the rules, evolve or die, or you did mention it in one of the shows. And so tell us about New Eon's evolution.
Well, I think, like I said, I had this sort of grand plan that I was going to offer sort of these consulting services to small businesses, but what it turned out to be was, a lot of the language I was using, a lot of the programs or the techniques I was using was still sort of more big company speak. So really, when it came down to it, people wanted sort of technology advice, and trying to tailor it to the small business market. That's why when I had a chance to partner up with another company, I said, this is great, because a lot of the nuts and bolts, hands-on stuff of fixing computers, setting up the networks, all that stuff. While I was coupling my technology sort of consulting advice work on top of that, it was a perfect sort of marriage made in heaven. And we built that up, a very strong business. And now, when we come full circle, I think this evolution is great, because I think one of the things that I've seen in the last 5 years is businesses have got a lot smarter about technology. Mm-hmm. They're also taking a lot more. It's not that they're scared of technology. They're looking at it as a business advantage. How do I use this to my advantage?
A competitive advantage, we call it marketing.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. And I think that one of the big things that they saw 5 years ago, they were just scared of it. They said, we're not ready for that yet. So I think that's one of the big evolutions that I've seen come full circle is now, we do a lot of consulting projects around small business, and it is sort of pure consulting services. Mm-hmm. So, here's a business problem, tell us how to figure out how to do a technology solution around it. Mm-hmm. And that set of services is a lot broader. We also worked on a couple consulting products around that. So, technical assessments, things like that, where we take a business problem like picking a phone system, which is, businesses of all size, go through this.
Sure.
And we had developed a technology selection process. Actually, I developed it when I was working on a consulting project that was for a very large business problem, and I took the same principles and methods that I had, and the ability to take a set of requirements, which is a very sort of very typical thing you do in a consulting project, and you take your vendors and see how they meet the requirements, and you score them.
Right.
So I've used the same selection process for hiring people, buying software, buying services, buying hardware,
Building a company.
and building a company. So you can set up a set of services, and I call them sort of productized services. How do you build a product out of this service?
Right.
So that has been very, very successful.
And Peter, one thing about starting a business, I think the people in the viewing audience, you're successful, but that doesn't mean that you didn't make any mistakes.
Oh God, no.
And well, and I think that the people would, in the viewing audience would like, were there some mistakes? And
Sure.
if you said, as I look back with my 20/20 hindsight glasses,
Absolutely.
had I known, I would not have done this, that, or the other thing. Can you give us some advice on that regard?
Yeah, I think that every time you make a strategic decision, I think it helps to talk to advisors. I mean, Cliff's a great resource. There are great resources in the community. If you have a board of directors, if you don't have a board of directors, get one. Or if you have a board of advisors, even better. Bounce these decisions off of other people. So hiring decisions, building or buying space to operate your business in. Who do you partner with? Those kind of mistakes. Who do you trust for certain advice? How to pick a lawyer. All these things. I wouldn't say I made mistakes in all those areas, but I think that timing, that's another thing. And you can't wear your 20/20 hindsight all the time. I mean, you can't. You just have to. Sometimes you have to take a chance and say, I think this is a good decision based on what I see in the marketplace, or based on what I see in in a specific business situation. Say, I think we're going to go for this, and it going in that it's a risk. So I think I've made hiring decisions too early. I've gone into markets that maybe haven't fully explored how deep it was, or how wide. Those kind of mistakes, those are common small business mistakes. But every time you make those mistakes, you learn something.
I think you'd say, as starting up a business, one thing that you have to be is okay. Don't get mind boggled about making a mistake.
Right.
Oh my God, I'm going to make a mistake. The question is, are you flexible and quick on your feet to recognize that such is a mistake and go in a different direction without wanting to kill yourself?
Sure, I think that sort of analysis paralysis. You spend so much time making a decision that you don't make a decision, and I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that people sort of spin their wheels on. Well, should I buy that building, or should I hire that salesperson, or should I hire this extra whatever it is?
Right.
A lot of times that hurts your business more. I think that indecision is a bigger
There are
problem.
going to be missed opportunities. People ask
Right.
me all the time,
Yeah.
did you ever make a mistake? And of course I say no. And then I lie. But no, what I do say is, you're going to make mistakes in business by virtue of the fact that being in business is always a risk. I tell people, I've made mistakes. Want to see my scars?
Yeah, exactly.
I just learned not to do that again. As a matter of fact, I've always found that I learned more by my mistakes than I did by the things I did right. Sometimes you do things right, you're not even sure why it worked. But when you did it wrong, you know what you did wrong.
Well, and there's a whole decision-making process about incremental.
Right.
If you make an incremental decision, you know how to test your decision.
Right.
And when you come around the cycle again, you say, well, you make the decision, test whether it was a good decision or not, and then decide whether to do something else. And then, that whole philosophy of, decide, test, decide, is probably the only way to do, and do it in small. If you can do it in small bites, that's easier. So
Absolutely.
if you're going to make a
Nice closed loop, we call it.
Exactly. If you make a course correction, you know that you're not going to try to turn the QE2 around. You're going to be making nice short, but you don't want to seem like you're wavering all over the place either. So that's the other downside of making too many decisions. So
Well, Peter, we can't let you go without also talking about the the mother's milk of new business, which is money.
Yes, right.
The ugly issue, and without getting without getting too personal about it, but I mean, I think people would like to know, when you start a business, nothing is for free.
Right.
You've got to have money. You got to either crack the piggy bank or steal it from the gas station or do something.
Do something, yeah.
Well, one of the things we talked about in the 10 rules that Bill actually wrote, and I, stole from him, and he made me talk about the Cliff's 10 rules. And it is go find the money, because it's going to take some money to build and run your business.
And that's the first thing you read about in every business book is don't ever undercapitalize your business.
Right.
And that was one of the mistakes I made with New Eon was I was fortunate that I didn't have to just take a flying leap off. I was transitioning out of another company, so it wasn't like I had to go write a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. I could ease into it, which that was a good thing. And we'll talk about another business I'm starting, but you want to capitalize it sufficiently so that you can look at your cash flow and say, look, if we're going to get to break even, have enough to get to break even and then some. So do your pro formas, make sure that you're not going to just go out one day and say, okay, now I hang a shingle and all of a sudden this revenue is going to come in. That's not going to happen. You have to plan for it and make sure you don't undercapitalize. So if you have to go get a loan, if you have to go, ask your rich uncle or whatever it is, get the money up front.
Get the money and be prepared. And like you said, do some pro formas and take a look and say just how long is this money going to last, and when do these two curves meet, so that now I can see that my cash flow operationally is going to be positive and I can go forward.
I think that's one of the other mistakes that I made early on was, what is cash flow positive? When you're talking in service business, it's very, you don't know how many clients you're going to get. You don't know, there's hard to predict. So, everybody has their hockey stick curves, right? And that doesn't work out that way. So you have to be realistic. Plan for 1, 2, 3 clients, and the size of projects. And underestimate and overperform it, and see if you can make those numbers work.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the things, speaking of good advice, Peter, also, where did you go for advice? I mean, where didn't you? It's easier for you to tell us where you did.
Well, the funny thing is, it wasn't like I started a business sort of right out of college. Well, I've done that already. So I started a business with a partner right out of college. We did pretty well, and we ended up selling the company. So this is my third time around. And so you make all these mistakes early on, and then hopefully you get smarter. But one thing I didn't know, I hadn't spent much time in the small business space. So that's one of the things I need to learn about.
Right.
And so I went to the Lower Cape Cod Community Development Corporation. Now it's called the Community Development Partnership, I think, CDP.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. It was a great organization.
And you change your name, you change your branding, you're going to goof us up,
It was only a month ago, so I have to be forgiven for that. But I spoke to Cliff early on, and then the chambers. Great advice all the way around. You talk to the chambers because
the Chamber of Commerce was a help to you.
Absolutely, yeah. Both the Cape Cod Chamber. I went to. I spent a lot of time learning who was in what chamber. So that was, we are fortunate or unfortunate to have sort of the best of both worlds. You have very small town chambers, on the Outer Cape, these very small chambers. Orleans, I went to Falmouth and the Cape Cod Chamber, and sort of cover the whole gamut.
Well, that is one thing on Cape. I mean, there is the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, but then there are these smaller ones that are sort of a township level.
Yep.
And you were aware of that apparently.
No, but I had to learn that. So you have to.
But you did learn.
yeah, and you have to learn. Okay, they're different. They're different entities.
Right.
Why do they operate? But I don't want to diminish the fact that the Lower Cape Cod CDC. One of the things that they had a program called Business Builders, and what it did was, it was for people that literally had never started a business before, but it taught them sort of the nuts and bolts, the fundamentals, which was great because I got to see who else was around the table with me.
Right.
It wasn't, I was there, obviously to learn and meet people, but that was a great program. It still is a great program.
It is.
And they're very successful in sort of weeding out people that are serious and those are not so serious in business.
Right. Well, that's the one thing I was going to ask you about, Peter, is that I used to think, well, the chambers of commerce are more or less in business, to support existing businesses, which on the Cape means motels, restaurants, gift shops, art studios, and so on and so forth. That are the typical businesses here on the Cape,
Sure.
but you're a new technology business, and I thought, is the Chamber of Commerce really prepared?
Yeah.
I don't mean the Chamber of Commerce, but any
chamber,
of them,
sure.
are they prepared to help you? And you're saying, yes, they are.
Well, I think, yes, they are. They're definitely, they're willing to listen to any new business starting up. And I think that, at the time, I think it was Kyle Hinkle was the head of the Orleans Chamber. They're willing to listen to businesses that want to move into town, that want to, and I can say that for pretty much every chamber I've met, they usually have open arms, and they say, great, you're starting a new business, let's hear about it, and because they
How can we help you?
Yeah, how can we help you? We have tools, we have advertising, we have whatever. We have these member to member, which are tremendous. If you're in a business that is networking or trying to sell things to other businesses, the business to business model,
B2B.
You need to meet these people, and you also need to not only just meet them to sell things to them, because 99% of the time you're not going to sell anybody anything at a meet and greet.
Right.
But what you're going to do is you're going to learn who they are, how they think, and understand why they buy things from certain people.
Right.
So the whole we use a tagline, trusted technology advisor. That whole concept of a trusted advisor goes a long way, because you can give away a lot of free time to get that one sale.
Right.
And whatever it is, that's sort of the we used to call the sort of the thin edge of the wedge. You spend enough time talking to somebody, eventually a project will come around.
What they have to do is get to know, get to like, and trust you.
Absolutely.
And that's the continuum.
Right. That's that. Right. In a thumbnail. That's definitely it.
Peter, I'd like to move on and ask you about this new NEU idea of yours called New Office.
Right.
Tell us about what New Office is.
New Office. Well, a couple of things. We had
your spelling is terrible.
It is terrible. I know. I have this problem with NEU.
NEUR. It's Latin, I guess.
It's or a German derivative.
Yeah,
so
right.
It's what we did is we had a great space in Orleans for one of our offices, and somehow these entrepreneurs kept stopping by and using the office, and for better or for worse, and I love you guys. No, really, and we've started a couple companies in and out of there that people would come in, use the office for a while, use our conference room, and we said, this is kind of a great idea. Where if we keep doing this, I recruited a couple business partners, and we said, we can make this community that we've created, this entrepreneurial community, we can make it a much larger. A larger system of people. And so we structured over the summer, a membership type of idea. And when you spend 1 day or 2 days or 3 days a week in the office, you pay different levels of membership. Right. Every member essentially pays for the shared facilities. It's the bathroom, it's the coffee maker, it's the lights and the Wi-Fi and everything else.
The connectivity,
Yeah, everything that keeps you in business. But we furnish it. We give it, fully furnished. So you don't bring anything. You bring your laptop, you sit down, and you're ready to go.
Open it up.
You can get signage on the. We use digital signs, so it's easy to if we have entrepreneurs coming in for 2 months or 6 months, whatever, we can swap it out very quickly.
Right.
And we have 2 conference rooms in Orleans, and hopefully, starting up in the early part of 2009, we'll have a space in Hyannis to work from.
Excellent.
But the thing is, one of the things that Cliff talks about is that. And when you're talking about new technology business, the Cape Cod is not the first thing that comes to your mind.
It isn't. No.
I mean, it led. What Cliff has talked about in previous shows is that part of the situation on the Cape in developing high technology business is an attitude.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going to be in the technology business, I need to go to Boston, I need to go to New York City, I need to go to San Francisco, whatever you say. The last place you go to the Cape, because you go to the Cape to get good clam strips.
Exactly right.
But I think that you are one of the people developing a new think pattern that this is just as good of a place, if not better, to develop businesses. Is that true or not?
It is true, and one of the reasons I think that it is true in Cape Cod is because a lot of people move here for the quality life, and a lot of people work remotely for other places. So there's a ton of what I call sort of the hidden talent. So these are people working for either big companies or working as independent contractors for other people off Cape, but this hidden talent gets lonely. They want to collaborate. They want to talk to other people. So what we're trying to do is tap into that talent and say, maybe you should meet some other people that look sort of like you, that work in similar ways.
Right.
And people are drawn here for obviously the quality of life, but a lot of similar lifestyles, similar experience can be found.
Very well educated,
very deep
experienced,
talent pool. Yeah, people aren't realizing how deep this talent pool is. Right.
Well, of course, one of the things that Cliff keeps talking about new technology is that it leads to what he calls green businesses. I mean, businesses, except for the Cape, because how is the Cape going to grow in employment by setting up a lead acid battery plant?
It's not going to happen.
Or we're going to get, better yet, we're going to get Caterpillar, to establish their next factory to make tractors.
No,
it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You need a low or no footprint business.
Absolutely.
And so technology and specifically information workers, so people that are moving bytes around, not even paper, they're moving bytes around.
Right.
And that's what they're doing. They're programmers, they're designers, they're writers, they're all the people that make a technology business buzz. Those are the people that we're looking for, and we want them not only to work by themselves, but our motto is sort of think together. And so if we can have that idea where we can have a community space that people can exchange ideas, maybe they're going to go and start a new company together. That would be the best thing we could do. They go out, two people get together from one of our spaces, they start a great company, they go and get a space of their own, hire 10 people, God bless them.
Absolutely.
Now, one of the things, you and I were talking about this earlier, one of Cliff's big pieces of advice is think across the other side of the Sagamore and Bourne Bridges.
That goes without
saying. Is that you say, well, no, if I'm talking market,
foreign nations.
If I'm talking market, I'm talking about the people located on Cape Cod, and Cliff says no.
Right.
Think globally. Today, the world is flat. Technology is here. You can think broadly and expansively, and so is that what you're telling people?
Exactly, and if you're only selling to people on Cape Cod, your market's this big, and it's not going to be profitable for you. I'm going to give this quote to Leslie Fishlock. She calls it business incest. That's what you can't be selling to people right across the street. I mean, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, thank you very much for being on the show. You're
Cliff,
a great
pleasure.
contributor to the show and to the business affairs on Cape Cod. A pleasure to talk with you. Today we're going to wrap up this session of the Fox Robbins Business Show. Thank you for watching. If you have any comments, please feel free to send your comments by email, by high technology, of course. To foxrobbins@gmail.com. And if you missed part of this segment with Peter Karlson or previous episodes of Fox Robbins, go to capemedia.org, which is a website where all the shows can be viewed that have been done up until now. And thanks to David Major, our director, and to the Cape Cod Community Media Center for helping us get this show going. And good night. See you next time.